On a cold winter day in January 1996, the city of Nanjing in eastern China was shaken by a discovery so horrifying that it still haunts the nation nearly 3 decades later. A young university student vanished without warning. Just days later, dismembered parts of her body began to appear in garbage bins across the city. The cuts were precise, almost surgical, as if carried out by someone with advanced knowledge of anatomy. The case became known as the Nanjing University Dismemberment Murder, a crime so brutal, so chilling, that it remains unsolved to this day. How could a killer commit such a gruesome act in the heart of a busy city and escape without leaving a single trace? Why was a promising young woman targeted? And perhaps the most disturbing question of all, could the murderer have been someone within the university itself?
Nanjing in the mid-1990s was a city in transition, still carrying the echoes of its tragic past, but bustling with the optimism of a new generation. Among the thousands of young students who came here seeking knowledge was a quiet 19-year-old freshman named Diao Aiqing. Born in 1977, she was described by her classmates as soft-spoken, diligent, and devoted to her studies at Nanjing University. But beneath the surface of the university's academic life, there were tensions. Students often lived in crowded dormitories, sharing space with little privacy. On the evening of January 20th, 1996, Diao reportedly had a disagreement with her roommate. It was nothing unusual, just the kind of argument that happens between young students living under stress. Yet that night, Diao Aiqing walked out of her dormitory and into the cold Nanjing streets. It would be the last time anyone saw her alive. 4 days later, the city would awaken to a nightmare. Garbage collectors discovered strange parcels in public bins, plastic bags tied shut, each containing human body parts. Piece by piece, the horrifying truth emerged. The remains belonged to a single young woman. And soon, investigators confirmed the worst. The victim was none other than the missing student, Diao Aiqing.
The discovery shocked even the most experienced investigators. Inside the bags scattered around Nanjing were not random remains, but carefully dismembered parts of a young woman's body. The cuts were clean, deliberate, and disturbingly precise. Whoever had done this was no amateur. It was the work of someone who understood anatomy. Diao Aiqing's body had been reduced to dozens of separate pieces. Some were found in public trash bins, others near riverbanks, and a few left almost in plain sight, as if the killer wanted them to be discovered. Even more chilling, not all of her remains were ever recovered. It was as if the murderer was both hiding and displaying the evidence, sending a twisted message to the authorities. The forensic team quickly realized that this was no impulsive crime. The meticulous dissection suggested the killer had time, privacy, and a disturbing level of skill. The tools used were sharp, surgical, and handled with frightening control. This was not just murder. It was a performance of power, a calculated act meant to horrify. In the words of one investigator, this was not rage. This was craft. Whoever the killer was, they had planned every step. The investigation that followed was one of the largest in Nanjing's history. Police cordoned off the university, questioning students and faculty alike. Every detail of Diao Aiqing's life was dissected. Her friends, her study habits, even her disagreements with classmates. The goal was clear: to find someone with both motive and the ability to commit such a calculated crime. More than 100,000 people were investigated, and yet no suspect could be firmly identified. Forensic experts concluded that the dismemberment was carried out with astonishing precision. This immediately led to a chilling theory. The killer may have been someone with medical training, or even a student of anatomy. If true, it meant the murderer could have been walking the same hallways as Diao, perhaps even someone she knew. Rumors spread quickly through the university. Was the killer a fellow student, a professor with hidden darkness, or an outsider who somehow knew the campus well enough to strike and then vanish? Fear gripped the students. For months after, many refused to walk alone at night. The police promised answers, but the deeper they dug, the stranger the case became. Clues that should have led to the truth only deepened the mystery. The murderer had left no fingerprints, no clear evidence, only the terrifying reminder of their skill. As the investigation dragged on without a clear suspect, theories began to swirl, some rooted in evidence, others in fear and speculation. The first theory was personal conflict. Diao Aiqing had quarreled with her roommate on the night she disappeared. Could resentment have escalated into violence? Yet the brutality of the crime seemed far beyond the rage of a fellow student. The second theory pointed toward obsession. Perhaps she had been targeted by a stalker, someone infatuated with her, who then lashed out when rejected. But police found no record of threatening letters, no prior reports of harassment. The most disturbing theory was that the killer had medical or anatomical training. The precision of the cuts, the methodical dissection, it resembled the work of someone who had studied the human body. Could a medical student or even a university professor have been responsible? If so, the killer was someone hiding in plain sight, shielded by education and status. And then came the whispers of something darker, speculation that the murder was ritualistic or even linked to black market organ trafficking. While the police never confirmed such claims, the gruesome dismemberment fueled endless rumors. Each theory added a new layer of horror, but none brought investigators closer to the truth. The crime remained as baffling as it was terrifying. The murder of Diao Aiqing sent shockwaves across China. Universities were supposed to be sanctuaries of learning and safety, yet this brutal crime had unfolded right in the heart of one of the nation's most prestigious schools. Parents across the country grew fearful for their children studying far from home, and many demanded tighter security on campuses. For the students of Nanjing University, life was never the same. Dormitory curfews became stricter, and groups rarely walked alone at night. The name Diao Aiqing became a whisper on campus, a reminder of the darkness that had invaded their community. The media initially covered the case with sensational headlines, but soon details began to fade from newspapers. Some speculated that authorities, unable to solve the case, preferred to bury it in silence rather than admit defeat. Yet the public never forgot. On online forums years later, Chinese netizens would revive the case, dissecting every clue and theory, desperately searching for answers the police had failed to provide. The tragedy of Diao Aiqing became more than just a crime story. It became a national wound, a symbol of injustice and unanswered questions. And as time passed, the silence around the case only made it more haunting. Nearly 3 decades have passed since that winter night in 1996, and still the case of Diao Aiqing remains unsolved. Police files, once overflowing with leads, have grown cold. Despite thousands of interviews and one of the largest investigations in Nanjing's history, the identity of the killer has never been uncovered. Over the years, advances in forensic technology have rekindled hope. DNA testing, unavailable in China at the time of the crime, has since become a powerful tool. Yet authorities have never announced a match. Was crucial evidence lost? Or is the killer still out there, blending into society, untouchable? For many, the most unsettling thought
is that the murderer may have been part of the university community all along, a student, a teacher, or someone who walked among the innocent every day. If that is true, then the crime was not only a tragedy, but a betrayal of trust at the heart of education. Today, the case is regarded as one of the most infamous unsolved murders in modern China. Each anniversary brings fresh discussions online, with armchair detectives revisiting the fragments of evidence, hoping to uncover what professional investigators could not. But for the family of Diao Aiqing, and for all who remember, the silence of justice remains the cruelest cut of all.